Chapter 1. The Lion comes to court. The road from the Riverlands to King's Landing has never felt longer. Tywin Lannister rides through the night, his destrier's hooves pounding against the cobblestones as dawn breaks over the capital's walls. Behind him, a column of Lannister guards struggles to keep pace with their lord's relentless speed. The urgency burns in his chest like wildfire. Tyrion captured. His youngest son, seized by Catelyn Stark like a common criminal. The gates of the Red Keep loom before them, and Tywin does not slow. Guards scramble aside as the Lord of Casterly Rock thunders into the courtyard, his crimson cloak billowing behind him. Something is wrong. The keep feels different, subdued. Servants move with hurried whispers, and the usual bustle of court life carries an undercurrent of tension. My lord, a nervous courtier, approaches as Tywin dismounts. The king, his grace is gravely injured, a hunting accident. Tywin's jaw tightens. Robert Baratheon lies dying, and the realm teeters on the edge of chaos. He strides through the corridors of power, his boots echoing against stone floors. This complicates everything. Tyrion's capture was already a provocation, but with Robert on his deathbed, the political landscape shifts like quicksand. In the Tower of the Hand, he finds Ned Stark hunched over a desk, his face haggard with exhaustion and grief. The Hand of the King looks up as Tywin enters, and for a moment neither man speaks. They have faced each other across battlefields and council chambers, but never in circumstances quite like these. Tywin. Ned's voice carries the weight of the world. I didn't expect you to come personally. My son was taken, Tywin replies, his tone measured but cold. Did you think I would send a raven? Ned sets down his quill and studies the man before him. Robert is dying. The realm needs stability, not war. Then we agree on something. Tywin moves closer to the desk, his green eyes sharp as Valyrian steel. What are your terms for Tyrion's release? But Ned Stark does not answer immediately. Instead, he reaches into a drawer and pulls out a book, its pages marked with careful notations. Before we discuss your son, there's something else. Something that changes everything. Tywin's expression does not shift, but his attention sharpens. Ned's hands tremble slightly as he opens the book. The lineages of the great houses, Ned explains. Robert asked me to investigate something before his accident. Look at this. He points to a passage about Baratheon bloodlines. Black hair, strong jawline, powerful build. For 300 years, these traits have dominated every Baratheon offspring, everyone. Now look at the royal children, Ned continues, his voice barely above a whisper. Tywin's eyes narrow as the implication settles like a stone in his stomach. Joffrey. Golden hair, green eyes, sharp features. Not a single Baratheon trait to be found, neither in Myrcella nor Tommen. You're suggesting. I'm not suggesting. Ned cuts him off. I'm telling you. Joffrey is not Robert's son. None of them are. The silence stretches between them like a blade. Tywin has built his legacy on ruthless pragmatism, but this revelation strikes at the very foundation of his house's power, his daughter's children, bastards born of incest, the throne they're set to inherit, built on a lie. Stannis is Robert's true heir, Ned says quietly. When Robert dies, the crown passes to him. Tywin walks to the window, gazing out at the city below. His mind works through the implications with mechanical precision. If this truth comes to light, Joffrey's claim crumbles. Cersei faces execution for adultery and treason. The war that follows will consume the 7 kingdoms. But there's another path, a harder one. What do you intend to do? Tywin asks without turning. My duty, Ned replies. I'll tell Stannis the truth, and ensure the rightful succession. And if I stand with Joffrey? If I declare this evidence fabricated? Ned's chair creaks as he leans back. Then we go to war. The realm bleeds while bastards sit the Iron Throne. Tywin turns from the window, his face carved from stone. For 40 years, he has put his family above all else. House Lannister's name, its gold, its power, these have been his driving forces. But standing in this chamber, with the evidence of his daughter's betrayal spread before him, he sees a different truth. A bastard king will destroy everything. The nobles will never truly accept Joffrey once doubts emerge. Rebellions will follow, one after another, until the 7 kingdoms tear themselves apart. His grandchildren will rule over ashes, if they rule at all. There's a third option, Tywin says slowly. We ensure Stannis' claim together. Publicly. Ned stares at him, searching for deception. You would betray your own blood. I would save the realm from chaos. Tywin's voice carries the weight of absolute certainty. Joffrey on the throne guarantees civil war. Stannis has the stronger claim, and with our combined support, his rule would be unquestioned. And Cersei? We'll face the consequences of her choices. The words come out harder than steel. Tywin loves his daughter, but he loves the realm's stability more. Better one family pays the price than the entire kingdom burns. Ned studies the Lord of Casterly Rock with new eyes. This is not the man he expected to find. Your bannermen won't follow you in this. Neither will mine at first. They will when they understand the alternative. Tywin moves to the desk and places his hand on the genealogy book. The evidence is clear. Stannis is Robert's heir, and we will ensure he claims what is rightfully his. A knock at the door interrupts them. A maester enters with tears in his eyes. My lords, he says softly, the king is dead. The words hang in the air like a death sentence. Robert Baratheon, the demon of the trident, is gone. The realm now belongs to whoever can claim it. Tywin meets Ned's eyes across the desk. It's decided then. We stand with Stannis. Together, Ned agrees, though the word tastes like ashes in his mouth. Outside, bells begin to toll across King's Landing, announcing the death of one king and the birth of a crisis that will reshape the 7 kingdoms. In the Tower of the Hand, 2 men who should be enemies shake hands over a bargain that will either save the realm or damn them both. The die is cast. The Lion of Casterly Rock has chosen duty over blood, and the consequences will echo through the halls of power for generations to come. Chapter 2. The Confession. The throne room of the Red Keep has never felt more imposing. Hundreds of courtiers pack the great hall, their whispered conversations echoing off the stone walls like the buzzing of angry wasps. At the center of it all sits the Iron Throne, its twisted metal gleaming in the torchlight. Joffrey Baratheon perches on the seat of kings, his golden crown catching the light as he surveys his domain with barely contained excitement. The boy king relishes this moment. His father is dead, the crown is his, and the realm will finally see him as he truly is. Powerful, decisive, worthy of the throne that Robert Baratheon left behind. Bring forth Lord Stark, Joffrey commands, his voice carrying across the hall with newfound authority. Let him confess his treason before the realm. Sir Meryn Trant steps forward, but the doors to the throne room burst open before he can speak. All eyes turn to the entrance as Tywin Lannister strides into the hall, his crimson cloak flowing behind him like spilled blood. The Lord of Casterly Rock moves with purpose, his presence commanding immediate attention from every soul in the room. Your Grace, Tywin says, his voice cutting through the murmur of the crowd. Before Lord Stark confesses to anything, there are matters of succession, that demand immediate attention. Joffrey leans forward on the throne, his green eyes bright with anticipation. "Grandfather, you've arrived just in time to see justice done. Lord Stark will confess his treason, and then we'll discuss terms for my uncle's release." "There will be no confessions today," Tywin replies, his tone sharp as winter steel. "Not from Lord Stark, and certainly not of treason." Confused whispers ripple through the crowd. Cersei rises from her chair beside the throne, her face pale as she studies her father's expression. Something is wrong. Tywin's eyes hold a cold determination she has never seen before, not directed at their family. "I don't understand," Joffrey says, his voice losing some of its regal confidence. "Lord Stark seized power illegally. He threatened the rightful king." "The rightful king," Tywin interrupts, his words echoing through the hall like a death knell, "is Stannis Baratheon." The throne room erupts. Gasps and shouts fill the air as nobles turn to each other in shock and confusion. Cersei grabs the armrest of her chair, her knuckles white with tension. Joffrey's mouth opens and closes like a fish pulled from water. "What did you say?" the boy king manages to whisper. Tywin steps closer to the Iron Throne, his voice rising to carry over the chaos. "I said that Stannis Baratheon is the rightful king of the Seven Kingdoms. You, Joffrey, are a bastard born of incest between your mother and my son, Jaime." The words hit the crowd like a physical blow. Several courtiers stumble backward, and one lord near the front actually falls to his knees. Cersei's face drains of all color as she stares at her father with naked horror. "You're lying!" Joffrey shrieks, his voice cracking with adolescent fury. "You're lying!" "I am not." Tywin produces a leather-bound book from beneath his cloak. The genealogies of House Baratheon are clear. Every true-born child of that bloodline has carried the same traits for 300 years. Black hair, strong build, commanding presence. You possess none of these. Ned Stark steps forward from where he has been standing under guard. "The evidence is overwhelming, Your Grace. Lord Tywin speaks the truth." "Both of you are traitors!" Joffrey screams, jumping to his feet on the throne. "Guards, arrest them both." But the Kingsguard hesitate. Sir Barristan Selmy looks between Joffrey and Tywin with growing unease. The accusations are monstrous, but they come from the Lord of Casterly Rock himself. Why would Tywin Lannister destroy his own family's claim to power unless the truth demanded it? "Consider carefully." Tywin addresses the room, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. "A bastard king cannot hold the Iron Throne. The realm will tear itself apart in endless rebellions. Better to acknowledge the truth now than watch the Seven Kingdoms burn." Littlefinger slides closer to Cersei, whispering urgently in her ear. But she seems unable to hear him. Her world is crumbling around her, and the architect of that destruction is her own father. "Father," she finally speaks, her voice barely audible above the crowd. "How can you do this to us, to your own blood?" Tywin meets her gaze without flinching. "I do this because you have left me no choice. Your children cannot rule. They were never meant to rule." Joffrey's face turns purple with rage. "I am the king. I am the king, and you will all bow before me." "You are nothing," Tywin responds with brutal finality. "A pretender born of lies and betrayal." The boy king draws his sword, the blade trembling in his hands. "I'll have your head for this. Both your heads." "Your Grace," Grand Maester Pycelle interjects, his voice quavering with fear. "Perhaps we should examine this evidence more carefully before." "Silence!" Joffrey spins toward the old man. "I don't need to examine anything. These men are traitors, and traitors die." He turns back to his guards. "I command you to arrest them." This time, some of the guards move forward, but their steps are uncertain. The political ground shifts beneath their feet like quicksand, and none dare move too quickly in any direction. Tywin raises his hands, showing he carries no weapons. I will not resist. The truth has been spoken, and history will remember this day. No, Ned says firmly. Lord Tywin, you cannot. I can and I will. Tywin's eyes find Ned's across the throne room. Someone must pay the price for years of deception. Better it be me than the realm itself. The guards surround Tywin, but they handle him with unusual deference. Even as they bind his hands, they seem to recognize they are arresting one of the most powerful men in Westeros on the word of a bastard king. Take him to the dungeons, Joffrey orders, his voice shrill with victory. And Lord Stark, too. But as the guards move toward Ned, the hand of the king steps backward toward a side entrance. The realm will remember your true nature, boy. Stannis is coming, and when he arrives, you'll answer for your father's death and your mother's crimes. Stop him! Joffrey screams. Chaos erupts again, as some guards pursue Ned while others maintain their hold on Tywin. In the confusion, the hand of the king disappears through a servant's entrance, leaving only echoing footsteps behind. Joffrey turns his fury on the remaining prisoner. You destroyed everything! Why? Tywin meets the boy's gaze with steady eyes. Because the realm is more important than any one family, even ours. Tomorrow, Joffrey declares, his voice carrying across the hall, Lord Tywin Lannister dies for his treason. Let all who oppose the rightful king witness what happens to those who spread lies about the crown. The Lord of Casterly Rock says nothing more as the guards lead him away. His sacrifice has been made, and the die is cast. In the throne room behind him, Joffrey begins planning an execution that will shake the foundations of the Seven Kingdoms. But across the narrow sea and in the far reaches of Westeros, ravens are already taking flight. The news will spread like wildfire. Tywin Lannister has declared Joffrey a bastard, and the War of the Five Kings has taken a turn that no one could have predicted. The realm holds its breath as morning approaches, and with it, an execution that will change the course of history. Chapter 3. The Realm Divided. The bells of the great Sept of Baelor toll across King's Landing as dawn breaks over the capital. In the courtyard before the Sept, a crowd has gathered to witness something unprecedented in the history of the Seven Kingdoms. Tywin Lannister, Lord of Casterly Rock and twice Hand of the King, kneels before the headsman's block. He does not beg. He does not weep. When Sir Ilyn Payne raises ice, the great Valyrian steel sword of House Stark, Tywin meets his death with the same cold dignity he brought to life. The blade falls, and with it, the political order of Westeros crumbles like a castle built on sand. Within the hour, ravens take flight from the Red Keep's rookery. Black wings carry impossible news across the Seven Kingdoms. The Lion of Casterly Rock is dead, executed by his own grandson for defending the rightful succession of Stannis Baratheon. In the Red Keep's solar, Queen Cersei stares at her reflection in a silver mirror, but the woman looking back is a stranger. Her father is gone. The man who built their family's power, who crushed rebellions and forged alliances, who made the Lannister name feared and respected across the realm, dead by her son's command. Your Grace, Qyburn approaches cautiously. Even the former Maester recognizes the dangerous stillness that has settled over the Queen. The small council awaits your presence. Cersei sets down the mirror with trembling hands. My father is dead. Yes, Your Grace. By my son's order. Yes, Your Grace. She stands slowly, her green dress rustling like autumn leaves. Then we are alone. In the throne room, Joffrey holds court with manic energy. The execution has intoxicated him with a sense of absolute power. He paces before the Iron Throne, gesturing wildly as he speaks to the handful of courtiers brave enough to remain. "Let them all see what happens to traitors," he declares. "My grandfather forgot his place, forgot who wears the crown. I am king. I decide who lives and dies." But the throne room feels different now, emptier. Many lords have quietly departed the capital, claiming urgent business in their home domains. The smart ones recognize a sinking ship when they see one. Grand Maester Pycelle shuffles forward, his ancient face creased with worry. "Your Grace, perhaps we should consider reaching out to Lord Stannis. A negotiated settlement." "Stannis is a traitor!" Joffrey shrieks. "Just like my grandfather. Anyone who speaks of settlement joins them on the block." Meanwhile, 300 miles north, a raven lands in the rookery of River Run. The Maester breaks the seal with shaking hands, reads the message twice to be certain, then hurries to the main keep where his lord waits. Robb Stark sits in the great hall of River Run, still wearing his armor from the morning's patrol. The war has aged him beyond his years, but he still possesses the fierce determination that won him the loyalty of the North. His direwolf, Grey Wind, lies at his feet, golden eyes alert to every sound. "My lord," the Maester approaches with visible reluctance. A raven from King's Landing. The news. It changes everything. Robb takes the parchment and reads in silence. His face shows no emotion, but his knuckles whiten as he grips the message. When he finishes, he looks up at his mother, who watches from across the hall. "Tywin Lannister is dead," he announces. "Executed this morning for treason." Catelyn Stark rises from her chair, her face a mask of confusion and disbelief. "That's impossible. The man we're fighting, the architect of this entire war, dead by his grandson's command." Robb hands her the letter. He declared Joffrey illegitimate before the entire court, supported Stannis' claim to the Iron Throne. The implications hit the room like a thunderclap. Without Tywin's strategic mind, the Lannister cause loses its most capable leader. Without his political acumen, their alliances will crumble. Without his reputation for ruthless competence, their enemies will grow bold. "Bring Jaime Lannister," Robb commands. "He needs to hear this." Guards escort the Kingslayer into the hall in chains. Even captivity cannot diminish his arrogant bearing, but something in Robb's expression gives him pause. The young wolf's eyes hold a mixture of satisfaction and something else. Pity, perhaps. "Well," Jaime drawls, "has the boy king finally decided to trade me for his precious sisters?" "Your father is dead," Robb says, without preamble. The words hit Jaime like a physical blow. His green eyes widen, and for a moment his carefully constructed mask of indifference slips entirely. "You're lying." "Executed this morning at the Sept of Baelor." Robb's voice carries no triumph, only the weight of terrible news. "By Joffrey's command." Jaime's legs give out, and he collapses to his knees despite the chains. The sound echoes through the hall like the crash of falling stone. No, not by Joffrey. Not by his own grandson. Catelyn moves closer, her face softening, despite everything this man has done to her family. "He declared Joffrey a bastard before the entire court, supported Stannis' claim to the throne." "That's impossible," Jaime whispers. "Father would never. He built everything for us, for the family." Perhaps he realized that some things matter more than family, Robb suggests quietly. On the island fortress of Dragonstone, Stannis Baratheon stands on the castle's highest tower, watching the sunset paint the narrow sea in shades of blood and gold. The Raven arrived an hour ago, and he has read its contents 12 times. Each reading makes the reality more difficult to accept. Tywin Lannister sacrificed everything, his family, his legacy, his life, to legitimize Stannis' claim to the Iron Throne. The most powerful lord in Westeros chose duty over blood, and died for that choice. My lord, Davos Seaworth approaches carefully. Even the Onion Knight recognizes the dangerous quiet that surrounds his king. The letter from King's Landing changes everything, Stannis finishes. Tywin Lannister has given me something I could never have taken by force: legitimacy. The lords will rally to you now, Davos agrees. Tywin's sacrifice proves your claim beyond doubt. Stannis crushes the letter in his fist. At what cost? The realm bleeds while children play at kingship. Across Westeros, in the halls of great houses, similar scenes unfold. Lord Randil Tarly reads the news in silence, then orders his maester to prepare a raven for Stannis Baratheon. In the Reach, smaller houses begin quietly distancing themselves from the Tyrell's support of Renly. In the Westerlands, Lannister bannermen gather in urgent council, questioning their loyalty to a cause their own lord abandoned. At Casterly Rock, Sir Kevan Lannister stares at his brother's final letter, a private message explaining his choice, begging forgiveness, and naming Kevan as the new lord of Casterly Rock. The burden of leadership falls to him now, along with the impossible task of salvaging what remains of their house's honor. "Summon the bannermen," he tells his steward, his voice heavy with grief and responsibility. "We need to discuss our position in this war." Some will follow Kevan's lead and continue fighting for Joffrey. Others will switch sides to Stannis. A few will simply go home and wait for the storm to pass. The great alliance that Tywin built through decades of careful politics fragments like glass under pressure. In King's Landing, night falls over a city that feels abandoned by the gods themselves. Cersei paces her chambers like a caged lioness, plotting desperate measures to maintain power. Joffrey sits on the Iron Throne, drunk on wine and the memory of his grandfather's execution, unable to comprehend the magnitude of what he has done. The realm is divided as it has never been before. In the space of a single day, the political landscape has shifted so dramatically that maps drawn yesterday are worthless today. Ravens continue to fly through the darkness, carrying news that will reshape the destinies of every great house in Westeros. The War of the Five Kings has taken a turn that no one predicted, and the reverberations of Tywin Lannister's final choice will echo through the Seven Kingdoms for generations to come. The lion is dead, but his roar will be remembered long after the last echo fades into history. Chapter 4. The young wolf advances. The War Council at Riverrun has never felt more electric with possibility. Maps spread across the great oak table show the Riverlands in exquisite detail, marked with colored pins representing armies, castles, and strategic positions. But the landscape has changed overnight, and the pieces on the board no longer follow the old rules. Robb Stark stands at the head of the table, his hands pressed flat against the map surface. The news of Tywin Lannister's execution still feels surreal, like something from a fever dream. The man who orchestrated the Red Wedding in another timeline, who crushed rebellions and built dynasties, is gone, removed from the game by his own grandson's hand. The Western Army is in full retreat, reports Sir Brynden Tully, the Blackfish. His weathered face shows grim satisfaction as he moves wooden markers across the map. Kevan Lannister has abandoned the siege lines around Riverrun entirely. They're pulling back toward Casterly Rock. Catelyn Stark watches her son carefully. The weight of command has aged him beyond his 17 years, but something new burns in his blue eyes now. Not just the fierce determination of the young wolf, but the calculating gleam of a king who sees opportunity where others see chaos. "How many men?" Robb asks. "Perhaps 15,000, the Blackfish replies. "But they're moving without purpose, without coordination. Kevin lacks his brother's tactical mind. The men know it, and morale is crumbling." Lord Karstark leans forward across the table, his gaunt face eager for blood. "We could catch them on the march, destroy them completely before they reach the safety of the rock." But Robb raises a hand for silence, his mind working through possibilities like a smith working metal. The old strategy was always defensive. Hold the Riverlands, protect the north, wait for political solutions. With Tywin alive, any aggressive move risked walking into one of the Lion's carefully laid traps. Now the board is clear. No, Robb decides. Let them run. We have bigger prizes to claim. He points to a cluster of castles marked in red along the rivers. With the Western Army retreating, every Lannister stronghold in the Riverlands is exposed. We take them all. Every last one. The room erupts with excited murmurs. These are men who have spent months fighting a defensive war, watching their lands burn while political games played out in distant capitals. The prospect of finally taking the offensive sets their blood on fire. "Darry, Harrenhal, Maidenpool," Robb traces his finger across the map. "All of them fall within the fortnight, and we free every prisoner they've taken." His eyes find his mother's across the table. Edmure Tully, her brother, has languished in Lannister chains for too long. Today, that changes, my lord, Sir Roderick Cassel speaks from the far end of the table. "With respect, shouldn't we consolidate our position? Tywin's death creates opportunity, but it also creates uncertainty. Other players will move to fill the vacuum." Robb's expression sharpens. "Exactly why we move fast. Before Stannis can claim the Riverlands for himself, before Renly decides he wants them, before anyone else realizes what we're doing. We secure our base, then we march on King's Landing, while the Lannisters are still reeling." The audacity of it steals breath from the room. March on the capital itself. Not raid, not siege, but take the Iron Throne while Joffrey sits drunk on his own perceived victory. "The boy king just executed the only man keeping his regime together," Robb continues, his voice gaining strength with each word. "Cersei's isolated, Jaime's our prisoner, and their armies are scattered or demoralized. We'll never have a better chance." Within hours, the Northern Army is on the move. 20,000 men pour out of River Run like water through a broken dam, moving with purpose and precision that speaks to months of hard campaigning. At their head rides the young wolf himself, his crown of bronze and iron catching the afternoon sun. Grey Wind lopes alongside Robb's horse, the dire wolf's golden eyes scanning the countryside for threats that will not come. The Lannister forces have abandoned their posts so completely that the Stark advance meets no resistance at all. At Darry they find the castle gates standing open. The Lannister garrison fled in the night, taking nothing but their weapons and what gold they could carry. In the dungeons, Northern soldiers break chains and lead prisoners into daylight they never expected to see again. "My lord," a Darry man-at-arms approaches Robb as he stands in the castle's great hall. "The Lannister commander left this for you." The letter bears Kevin Lannister's seal. Robb breaks it open and reads aloud to his assembled lords. "To Robb Stark, king in the north. I surrender Darry and all holdings west of the Trident. My brother's death changes everything. I will not see more good men die for a lost cause." The hall erupts in cheers, but Robb remains thoughtful. Kevin's withdrawal makes strategic sense, but it also signals something larger. The Lannister coalition is fracturing, pulling back to defensible positions while they reassess their options. "He's buying time," Catelyn observes when the celebration dies down. "Let him," Robb replies. Every day they delay is another day Stannis grows stronger, another day Joffrey's incompetence becomes more obvious to his remaining supporters. Time is on our side now. The march to Harrenhal takes 2 days through country that should be hostile territory. Instead, they find villages that cheer their arrival, small folk who offer bread and ale to the northern soldiers. The sight of Lannister forces in full retreat has convinced the common people that the tide of war has turned. Harrenhal itself proves more challenging, but only because of its size. The great castle's garrison amounts to fewer than 300 men, holed up in towers that could hold 3,000. They surrender after a brief siege that costs more arrows than blood. In Harrenhal's dungeons, they find their greatest prize. Edmure Tully emerges from his cell like a man returning from the grave, blinking in the torchlight as his sister runs to embrace him. The future Lord of Riverrun is thinner than when the war began, marked by months of captivity. But his spirit remains unbroken. "Nephew!" Edmure grips Robb's shoulder with surprising strength. "I knew you'd come." "Uncle." Robb's voice carries genuine affection beneath the formal words. "The Riverlands are yours again. Every castle, every village, the Lannisters are gone." Around the great hall of Harrenhal, Northern and Riverland banners hang side by side. The sight would have been impossible a week ago, when Tywin's strategic genius kept the allied armies constantly off balance, never able to claim decisive victories. Now the map has changed completely. That night, as Robb stands on Harrenhal's highest tower, looking south toward King's Landing, his mother joins him in the darkness. "You're thinking of the capital," she says. "It's not a question." "I'm thinking of ending this war," Robb replies. "Joffrey's reign hangs by a thread. One push, and it all comes down. And if Stannis reaches King's Landing first? If he claims the Iron Throne before we arrive?" Robb considers this. In the distance, campfires dot the landscape like fallen stars. His army, growing stronger with every freed castle, every lord who declares for the king in the north, rather than the madness in the capital. "Then we'll deal with Stannis when the time comes," he decides. But Joffrey dies. That boy's crimes against our family, against the realm itself, cannot go unpunished. The wind carries the sound of his army's voices, songs of victory, stories of battles won, plans for battles yet to come. For the first time since leaving Winterfell, Robb Stark allows himself to believe that victory is possible. Tywin Lannister's death has shattered the careful balance that kept the war stalemated. Now the pieces fall where they will, and the young wolf intends to be there to catch the crown when it tumbles from Joffrey's worthless head. The march on King's Landing begins at dawn. Chapter 5. The Lion's Revenge. The road from Riverrun to King's Landing winds through countryside that has seen too much war. Burned villages dot the landscape like blackened teeth, and ravens feast on corpses that no one has time to bury. It is through this wasteland that a prison convoy makes its way south, carrying valuable prisoners to whatever fate awaits them in the capital. Jaime Lannister sits in chains in the back of a wooden cart, his golden hair matted with dirt and blood. 3 days have passed since he learned of his father's death, and the grief has curdled into something far more dangerous. The Kingslayer's green eyes burn with a fury that makes even his guards nervous. "Easy there, sir," one of the guards mutters as they approach a narrow bridge spanning a swollen creek. "We'll have you to King's Landing soon enough." Jaime says nothing. He has been planning this moment since the convoy left Riverrun, studying the guards' routines, counting their numbers, waiting for the perfect opportunity. The bridge ahead is that opportunity. Narrow, with steep banks on both sides that will limit their options. When the cart reaches the center of the span, Jaime makes his move. The chains around his wrists are heavy, but they also make deadly weapons. He swings them like a flail, catching the nearest guard across the throat with a wet crunch. The man topples from his horse into the creek below. "He's loose!" another guard shouts, drawing his sword. But Jaime is already moving. Months of captivity haven't dulled his reflexes, and rage gives him strength beyond his natural limits. He rolls from the cart and comes up fighting, using the chains to entangle weapons and crush bones. Blood sprays across the wooden planks of the bridge as the Kingslayer lives up to his reputation. The fight is brief and brutal, and, when it ends, 6 men lie dead or dying, and Jaime Lannister stands free in the middle of a bridge painted red with blood. He strips armor from the dead guards and takes the best horse, a destrier that will carry him swiftly toward his destination. King's Landing burns with more than torches as news of Robb Stark's advance reaches the capital. In the Red Keep's throne room, Joffrey paces before the Iron Throne like a caged animal, his crown sitting crooked on his golden head. The boy king's face twists with fury as he addresses his dwindling court. "Traitors and cowards!" he shrieks at the assembled lords. "They abandon their rightful king in his hour of need." But the throne room feels emptier each day. Many great houses have recalled their representatives, claiming urgent business in their home domains. The smart ones recognize that the Lannister regime is collapsing, and they want to be far from the capital when it falls. Grandmaster Pycelle shuffles forward, his ancient frame trembling with either age or fear. "Your Grace, perhaps we should consider opening negotiations with Lord Stark, a diplomatic solution." "No!" Joffrey's voice cracks like a whip. "I am the king. Kings do not negotiate with rebels." In her solar high above the throne room, Queen Cersei stares out at the city below and sees her doom approaching with every passing hour. Ravens from across the realm bring nothing but bad news. Lords declaring neutrality, armies switching sides, the careful alliance her father built crumbling like sand. A knock at her door breaks her dark thoughts. "Enter." The man who steps into her chambers wears the robes of the faith, his face gaunt with religious fervor. The High Sparrow's pale eyes seem to look straight through her, as if weighing her soul for sins. "Your Grace," he says, his voice soft but somehow carrying the weight of divine judgment. "You sent for me." Cersei turns from the window, her green dress rustling like autumn leaves. "I need your help." "The faith serves the gods, not crowns," the High Sparrow replies. "But we are not blind to the chaos consuming the realm. Perhaps an arrangement could be reached." "Name your price." The religious leader's thin lips curve in something that might be a smile. "The crown's protection for the faith militant. Legal authority to bear arms in service of the Seven, and the right to dispense justice according to divine law." It is a dangerous bargain. The faith militant has been outlawed for centuries, their fanatic warriors a threat to royal authority. But Cersei has few options remaining, and desperate times demand desperate measures. "Done," she says. "You'll have your authority. In return, I need your warriors to defend King's Landing. The gods will protect the righteous," the High Sparrow intones, "and punish the wicked." Meanwhile, in the taverns and brothels of Flea Bottom, a different kind of recruitment takes place. Gold flows like water as Cersei's agents hire every sellsword, cutthroat and mercenary the capital can provide. The Queen may have lost the loyalty of the great houses, but gold still speaks to desperate men. "Double pay for anyone who's fought in the free cities," a Lannister sergeant calls out in a crowded tavern. "Triple for anyone who's killed a Northman." The response is enthusiastic. These are not honorable knights fighting for honor or duty, but killers motivated by coin and the promise of plunder. They care nothing for kings or rightful succession, only for the weight of gold in their purses. 20 miles outside King's Landing, Jaime Lannister urges his stolen horse through a forest that once belonged to royal hunting parties. His armor is blood-stained, and his face bears fresh scars from his escape, but his eyes burn with single-minded purpose. His father is dead. His family is destroyed. Someone must pay. He thinks of Joffrey sitting on the Iron Throne, drunk on power and oblivious to the consequences of his actions. The boy who ordered Tywin Lannister's execution for the crime of speaking truth. Jaime's hands tighten on his reins as he imagines those same hands around his nephew's throat. A sound from the road ahead makes him rein in his horse. Voices carry through the trees. Soldiers on patrol, probably searching for him. Jaime draws his sword and urges his mount forward. He has no time for subtlety. The patrol consists of 8 men wearing stark colors, probably scouts from Robb's advancing army. They die quickly and quietly, cut down by a knight whose skill with a blade remains undiminished despite his ordeal. Jaime wipes his sword clean on one of their cloaks and continues toward the capital. In King's Landing, Joffrey holds court with increasing mania. The stress of approaching armies and dwindling support has pushed the boy king past the edge of reason. He orders executions for minor slights, threatens to burn the city rather than surrender it, and rants about traitors hiding behind every pillar. "Bring me their heads!" he screams at his guards when a servant spills wine near the Iron Throne. All of them, starting with him. But even his King's Guard hesitate. Sir Meryn Trant exchanges glances with Sir Boros Blount, both men beginning to question the wisdom of following orders that grow more insane each day. That evening, as darkness falls over the capital, Jaime Lannister rides through the gates of King's Landing. His face is hidden beneath a captured Stark helmet, his golden hair tucked beneath mail. The guards barely glance at him, just another sellsword coming to claim the crown's generous bounty for defending the city. He makes his way through the twisting streets toward the Red Keep, past taverns full of hired killers and religious fanatics sharpening their weapons. The city feels like a powder keg waiting for a spark, and Jaime intends to provide that spark. In the godswood of the Red Keep, beneath the ancient weirwood tree with its carved face, Jaime finally stops. Here, where his father once walked and planned the future of their house, the Kingslayer kneels in the dirt and speaks to the silent darkness. "I failed you, Father," he whispers to the night wind. "But I'll make it right. The boy dies tonight." Above him in the castle, Cersei paces her chambers like a caged lioness, unaware that her twin brother has returned. Below in the throne room, Joffrey holds court with his hired killers and fanatic priests, celebrating his power, while enemies close in from all sides. The pieces are all in place for a confrontation that will shake the 7 kingdoms. The Lion's revenge has come home to King's Landing, and before dawn breaks, blood will flow in the halls of power. The War of the 5 Kings approaches its climax, and in the Red Keep, brother prepares to face brother in a conflict that will determine the fate of the Iron Throne. The young king's reign of terror is about to face its greatest test, and not all who enter the game will survive to see the sun rise again. Chapter 6. Kings and Pretenders. On the windswept battlements of Dragonstone, Stannis Baratheon watches ships arrive in his harbour, like pieces moving across a game board. Each vessel brings new banners, new lords, new declarations of fealty to the rightful king of the 7 kingdoms. The sight would have been impossible a fortnight ago, when his cause seemed hopeless and his claim ignored by the great houses. Tywin Lannister's sacrifice has changed everything. My lord, Davos Seaworth approaches, with a leather satchel full of letters. More ravens from the mainland. House Hightower declares for you. The Red Wines have withdrawn their support from Renly. Even some of the northern houses speak of acknowledging your claim. Stannis takes the letters with hands that show no emotion, but Davos knows his king well enough to recognize the satisfaction burning beneath that stone facade. The Onion Knight has served Stannis for years, and he has never seen lords flock to his banner with such enthusiasm. Tywin Lannister was a hard man, Stannis says, his voice carrying across the wind. But he died for the truth. That means something to honorable houses. Below in Dragonstone's great hall, the mood feels electric with possibility. Lords who would never have considered supporting Stannis now bend the knee with genuine respect. The man who sacrificed everything to legitimize the rightful succession has given them something precious. Moral certainty in an age of political chaos. Your Grace, Lord Velaryon steps forward, his sea-green cloak billowing around his tall frame. My ships await your command. Say the word, and we sail for King's Landing. But Stannis raises a hand for patience. Not yet. Let the boy king destroy himself further. Every day Joffrey remains on the throne, more lords remember why legitimate succession matters. Meanwhile, 200 miles south, another king holds court beneath different banners. Renly Baratheon sits in a pavilion of green silk, surrounded by the flower of chivalry from the Reach. Knights in gleaming armor feast on rich foods, while their horses graze in fields that have never known war's devastation. Brother Stannis gains support, Sir Loras Tyrell reports, his voice carrying unease despite the feast's revelry around them. Houses that pledge to us now speak of honor and rightful claims. Renly's handsome face shows no concern, but those who know him well can see the calculation behind his emerald eyes. The younger Baratheon brother has built his claim on charisma and the promise of prosperity, but moral authority proves harder to counter than steel. Let them talk of honor, Renly says with studied casualness. When they see our strength, they'll remember that dead kings cannot protect the realm. Lady Margaery Tyrell leans forward from her place beside the would-be king, her brown eyes sharp with political intelligence. Perhaps we should accelerate our march north, Your Grace. Reach King's Landing before either Stannis or the young wolf can claim it. Wise counsel, my lady. Renly's smile carries genuine warmth, but underneath lies the steel of a man who intends to rule. Send word to our vanguard. We march at dawn. The news that reshapes the political landscape comes not from Westeros, but from across the narrow sea. In the free city of Pentos, merchants gather in wine-soaked taverns to whisper of impossible things witnessed in the Dothraki Sea. Dragons, living, breathing dragons, emerged from funeral pyres like creatures from the age of legends. 3 of them, a spice trader insists to his disbelieving audience. Black as night, green as emeralds, cream and gold like sunrise. And the girl who commands them claims to be Daenerys Targaryen. The name sends shivers through those who remember the Mad King's reign. Targaryen. The dragon lords who ruled Westeros for 3 centuries before Robert's rebellion scattered them to the winds. If dragons have truly returned, the Game of Thrones takes on dimensions that no living player fully comprehends. In King's Landing, these distant rumors reach Varys first. The spider sits in his chambers deep beneath the Red Keep, reading letters that arrive by secret paths known only to his network of informants. His smooth face shows no expression as he absorbs news that will reshape the political landscape of 2 continents. Interesting times, he murmurs to himself, then burns the letters one by one until only ashes remain. Above, in the throne room, Joffrey holds court with decreasing frequency and increasing paranoia. The boy king trusts no one, sees enemies behind every pillar, and lashes out with violence that grows more extreme each day. His remaining courtiers watch with nervous eyes as their sovereign descends deeper into madness. "Bring me Stannis' head!" Joffrey shrieks at his assembled knights. 10,000 dragons to the man who kills my uncle. 20,000 for Robb Stark. But gold means little when the realm's economy teeters on the edge of collapse. The crown's debt grows daily, while tax revenue disappears from regions that no longer acknowledge Joffrey's authority. Even the Iron Bank of Braavos sends increasingly stern letters demanding payment on loans that funded Robert's excesses. In a shadowed alcove of the throne room, Littlefinger observes the chaos with calculating eyes. Lord Baelish has survived every regime change in King's Landing by reading the currents of power and positioning himself accordingly. The current currents all point in one direction, away from the boy who sits the Iron Throne. "Lord Baelish," Grand Maester Pycelle shuffles close, his voice barely above a whisper. "Perhaps we should consider alternative arrangements for the good of the realm." Littlefinger's smile reveals nothing of his thoughts. "The realm has many needs, Grand Maester. We must be patient and see how events unfold." But patience grows short as reports arrive of armies on the march from multiple directions. Robb Stark approaches from the north with 20,000 swords. Renly moves up from the south with 40,000 knights and levies. Stannis prepares his fleet at Dragonstone, his force smaller but growing daily with moral authority. In the Red Keep's rookery, ravens prepare to carry messages that will determine the fate of kingdoms. Secret negotiations begin between faction leaders who seek advantage in the coming storm. Lords who declared for one king quietly send envoys to another, hedging their bets as the realm tears itself apart. "Your Grace." Varys glides into Cersei's solar-like smoke-given form. "There are matters we should discuss, privately." The Queen looks up from correspondence that grows more desperate each day. Letters to potential allies who no longer respond. Pleas for gold that will never come. Military assessments that paint increasingly grim pictures of the capital's defenses. "Speak," she commands. "The Boy King's position grows untenable," Varys says with characteristic directness. "Perhaps it is time to consider succession planning." Cersei's green eyes flash with dangerous fire. "You speak treason. I speak reality. Tommen could rule where Joffrey cannot. A regency council, wise guidance, a fresh start for House Baratheon's claim." "Get out!" Cersei's voice carries the chill of winter winds. "Before I have you thrown from the walls." But as the spider withdraws, his words echo in the chamber like prophecy. The Queen knows he speaks truth, even as she refuses to acknowledge it. Joffrey's reign cannot survive the convergence of enemies gathering around King's Landing. That night, in taverns throughout the capital, sellswords and faith-militant warriors eye each other with suspicion. Two very different armies defend the city, one motivated by gold, the other by religious fervor. Neither truly serves the crown, and both will act according to their own interests when battle comes. In the Godswood of the Red Keep, Jaime Lannister sharpens his sword beneath the ancient weirwood tree. Tomorrow will bring the confrontation he has waited for since learning of his father's death. The boy king who destroyed their family will answer for his crimes, regardless of the cost. Multiple armies converge on King's Landing, like wolves drawn to a wounded deer. 3 kings lay claim to the Iron Throne, while dragons stir across the narrow sea. The realm fractures along lines of loyalty, ambition, and survival, and in the center of it all sits a mad boy with a crown too heavy for his head. The endgame approaches, and not all who have played the Game of Thrones will survive to see its conclusion. Chapter 7. The Battle of King's Landing. Dawn breaks blood-red over Blackwater Bay as Stannis Baratheon's fleet crests the horizon like a wave of death. 50 warships bear down on King's Landing, their hulls cutting through morning mist while banners snap in the wind. The crowned stag of House Baratheon flies from every mast, but these ships carry more than Stannis' own forces. "Look at those banners," Davos Seaworth points from the flagship's deck. Red-wine ships, high-tower galleys, even some of the royal fleet has joined us. Stannis grips the rail with hands like iron, watching the capital grow larger with each passing moment. Tywin Lannister's sacrifice continues to bear fruit. Lords who would never have supported a usurper now rally to the rightful king's cause. "Signal the attack," Stannis commands. "The realm ends its suffering today." On the walls of the Red Keep, Queen Cersei watches the approaching fleet with mounting desperation. 50 ships where intelligence reports promised 20. The boy king's reign faces its final test, and the defenders look pitifully few against the armada bearing down on them. "Your Grace," a faith militant captain approaches, his armor marked with the 7-pointed star. The High Sparrow requests permission to evacuate the Great Sept. The battle. "No," Cersei cuts him off, her green eyes blazing with fury born of desperation. "Everyone fights, everyone bleeds for the crown." But even as she speaks, another threat emerges from the northern approaches. Banners bearing the grey direwolf of House Stark crest the hills surrounding King's Landing, followed by column after column of northern infantry. 20,000 swords march in perfect formation, their steel gleaming in the morning light. Robb Stark rides at their head, his crown of bronze and iron marking him as clearly as a target. Grey Wind lopes beside his horse, the direwolf's golden eyes fixed on the city that has brought so much pain to their family. The young wolf has come to settle debts written in blood. "Form ranks!" Northern sergeants bellow across the field. "Shields up! Pikes forward!" The defenders of King's Landing scramble to meet threats from land and sea simultaneously. Sellswards hired with Lannister gold man the city walls, while faith militant warriors take positions in the streets. It is a patchwork defense held together by desperation and the promise of coin. In the throne room, Joffrey sits on the Iron Throne with his crown askew and wine stains on his doublet. The boy king's hands shake with either fear or fury as reports pour in from his dwindling forces. His Kingsguard stand nearby, but even their loyalty wavers as the sounds of battle echo through the Red Keep. "Bring me my sword," Joffrey screams at his guards. "I'll kill them all myself, starting with that northern bastard." But before anyone can respond, the great doors burst open. Jaime Lannister strides into the throne room, his armor blood-spattered and his sword drawn. The Kingslayer has fought his way through the castle's defenders, leaving a trail of corpses in his wake. "Uncle Jaime," Joffrey's voice cracks with relief and confusion. "You've come to defend your king." Jaime's green eyes burn with cold fury as he approaches the Iron Throne. "I've come for justice." The first clash comes at the city's harbour as Stannis' ships engage the chain that guards Blackwater Bay. But this time, no wildfire explodes beneath his fleet. The capital's defences lack Tyrion's ingenuity and Tywin's strategic preparation. Royal galleys attempt to ram the incoming vessels, but they are overwhelmed by sheer numbers. "Board them!" Stannis himself leads the assault as his flagship grapples with a defender. His sword cuts through enemy sailors like wheat before a scythe, and his men follow with religious fervour. The rightful king has come home. Meanwhile, Robb Stark's forces assault the city walls with ladder and ram. Northern archers rain arrows on the defenders, while siege engines batter the gates. The sellswords fight with professional competence, but they lack the desperate fury of men defending their homeland. "The king in the north!" Northern voices roar as they surge over the walls. "Winter has come!" In the Red Keep's throne room, steel rings against steel as Jaime Lannister faces his nephew. But Joffrey proves no match for a knight who has spent his life perfecting the art of killing. The boy king's sword work is clumsy, untrained, more suited to torturing prisoners than facing a true warrior. "You killed him," Jaime snarls as their blades lock. "You killed the only man who could have saved this realm." "He was a traitor!" Joffrey shrieks, sweat running down his face. "Just like you." The duel ends quickly. Jaime's blade slides between Joffrey's ribs with surgical precision, finding the gap in his armor that only experience could exploit. The boy king topples backward, his crown rolling across the floor with a sound like funeral bells. "Long live the king," Jaime whispers to the corpse. Outside in the city, battle rages through every street and alley. Faith-militant warriors die with prayers on their lips, while sellswords flee when their promised gold proves insufficient motivation. The smell of smoke fills the air as buildings catch fire from overturned braziers and dropped torches. Stannis' forces fight their way inland from the harbour, cutting through defenders with methodical efficiency. These are not the desperate fanatics who defended against wildfire, but professional soldiers led by a king who has tasted defeat and refuses to accept it again. "Take the Red Keep," Stannis commands as his men clear the final street. "But leave the boy king alive. Justice requires a trial." But justice has already been served by other hands. Robb Stark breaches the Red Keep's main gates as the last defender falls. His northern army pours into the courtyard like a grey tide, overwhelming the scattered resistance. Grey wind bounds ahead of his master, the dire wolf's howl echoing off ancient stones. In the throne room, Robb finds a scene that will haunt his dreams. Joffrey lies dead before the Iron Throne, his golden blood pooling on black stone. Jaime Lannister kneels beside the body, his sword on the floor, and his hands covered in royal blood. "It's done," Jaime says, without looking up. "The boy paid for his crimes." Robb draws his own sword, pointing it at the Kingslayer's throat. "And what of your crimes, Ser Jaime?" "Name them," Jaime replies, meeting Robb's eyes with steady gaze. "I've killed 2 kings now. Both deserved it." Before Robb can respond, Stannis Baratheon arrives with his own guard. The rightful king surveys the throne room with cold satisfaction, taking in the dead boy and the kneeling knight. Justice has been served, though not by his hand. "Rise, Ser Jaime," Stannis commands. "You have done the realm a service." In the confusion that follows, Queen Cersei attempts to flee through the castle's secret passages, but northern soldiers find her in Maegor's holdfast, clutching a vial of poison and weeping for her dead son. The queen who commanded armies and plotted kingdom's fate surrenders without resistance. The battle for King's Landing ends not with grand heroics, but with exhausted silence. Smoke drifts over a city that has changed hands for the last time. The Mad King's line is extinguished, the boy king lies dead, and 3 claimants stand in the throne room, where Robert Baratheon once held court. "The crown is yours by right," Robb tells Stannis, his sword finally lowered. "But the North remembers its own." Stannis nods with grim respect. "The North has bled enough for southern crowns. Rule your own kingdom, king in the North. I'll content myself with the remaining 6. As night falls over the capital, ravens prepare to carry news across the 7 kingdoms. Joffrey Baratheon is dead. The War of the 5 Kings has found its resolution in blood and steel. And in the Iron Throne's shadow, 2 kings who never wanted to rule make peace that their fathers could not achieve. The realm begins its long journey toward healing, built on the foundation of Tywin Lannister's final sacrifice and the justice that followed in its wake. The Game of Thrones has ended, and those who survive must now learn the harder art of governing in peace. Chapter 8. A New Order. The Iron Throne looks different in the morning light that streams through the throne room's stained glass windows. Stannis Baratheon sits upon the seat of kings with none of Robert's casual arrogance or Joffrey's manic fury. The rightful king wears his crown like the burden it truly is, his jaw set with the grim determination that has defined his entire life. Before him, the great lords of Westeros kneel in submission. Some come willingly, drawn by the moral authority that Tywin Lannister's sacrifice provided. Others arrive out of pragmatism, recognizing that resistance means only death and ruin. The sight would have been impossible a month ago, when Stannis commanded barely 5,000 swords and the respect of even fewer lords. "Rise," Stannis commands, his voice carrying easily through the vast hall. "We have work to do." Lord Randyll Tarly steps forward first, his stern face showing grudging respect. "Your Grace, the Reach declares for House Baratheon. Renly's army has disbanded, and my men await your commands." "Good." Stannis' approval comes without warmth, but those who know him recognize it as high praise. The realm needs order, not more bloodshed. At the king's right hand stands Robb Stark, wearing his crown of bronze and iron with equal gravity. The agreement reached in the aftermath of battle has shocked lords throughout the Seven Kingdoms, but its wisdom grows clearer with each passing day. The North has bled enough for southern politics, and Stannis lacks the strength to force unwilling submission. "Your Grace," Robb addresses Stannis with careful formality, "the northern lords are prepared to withdraw beyond the neck. We ask only that our independence be recognized in writing." "You shall have it." Stannis nods toward the scribes who wait near the throne. "Draw up the documents. The Kingdom of the North acknowledges Stannis Baratheon as rightful king of the Six Kingdoms. In return, the Iron Throne recognizes northern sovereignty." Murmurs ripple through the assembled lords. Some speak of dangerous precedent, of realms fracturing beyond repair, but others see wisdom in ending a war that has consumed too many lives and resources. The North has proven it cannot be held by force, and Stannis values pragmatism over pride. In the dungeons beneath the Red Keep, Cersei Lannister awaits her fate in a cell that once held enemies of her regime. The former queen sits on a simple wooden bench, her golden hair unkempt, and her green dress stained with dirt and tears. Gone is the regal bearing that once commanded armies and toppled kingdoms. When the cell door opens, she looks up to see Stannis himself enter, flanked by guards but showing no fear. The rightful king studies his prisoner with cold calculation, weighing justice against mercy in scales that have never favored the latter. "Your Grace," Cersei rises and attempts a curtsy, but the gesture carries no real submission. "I trust you'll grant me the dignity of a quick death." "You mistake me for your son," Stannis replies. "I don't execute prisoners for sport." Cersei's eyes flash with dangerous fire. "Then what? A trial? Public humiliation before you take my head?" "Justice," Stannis says simply. "Something this city has lacked for too long." The trial of Queen Cersei begins 3 days later in the throne room, with lords and ladies packed into every available space. The charges read like a catalogue of the realm's suffering: adultery, treason, the corruption of succession, conspiracy in Robert's death. Each accusation carries the weight of truth that no amount of gold or political maneuvering can deflect. Sir Jaime Lannister stands as a witness, his testimony delivered in a voice devoid of emotion. He speaks of years of deception, of children born in sin, of a queen who placed personal ambition above the realm's welfare. His words condemn his sister and lover, but they also carry the bitter honesty of a man seeking redemption. The accused is guilty on all counts, Stannis pronounces when the evidence concludes, but the sentence requires consideration of justice, not merely vengeance. The punishment announced shocks the assembled court. Cersei will not face the headsman's block or the flames that consumed other queens. Instead, she receives life imprisonment at the Silent Sisters' mother house, where she will spend her remaining years in prayer and contemplation. It is a mercy that surprises even her enemies, but Stannis explains his reasoning with characteristic bluntness. "The realm has seen enough royal blood spilled," he declares. "Let mercy temper justice, and let healing begin." The question of Tommen and Myrcella proves more delicate. The children bear no responsibility for their parents' sins, but their illegitimate birth makes them living symbols of the deception that nearly destroyed the kingdom. In his solar overlooking Blackwater Bay, Stannis meets with his advisors to determine their fate. "They cannot remain in line of succession," Davos Seaworth argues gently, "but their children, your grace, innocent of their parents' crimes." Innocent, yes, Stannis agrees, but their very existence threatens the stability we've fought to achieve. The solution, when it comes, reflects Stannis's commitment to justice over expedience. Tommen and Myrcella will be removed from succession and sent to ward with loyal houses far from the capital. They will live comfortable lives under new names, free from the burden of royal blood, but also from its dangers. Let them grow up as ordinary nobles, Stannis decides, away from thrones and crowns and the corruption that comes with them. Meanwhile, in the north, ravens carry news of the Independence Treaty to every castle and hold fast. At Winterfell, Bran Stark reads the formal recognition with wonder, scarcely believing that his brother has achieved what their father thought impossible. The north is free, sovereign, and at peace for the first time in generations. "King Robb," he whispers to himself, testing how the title sounds. It fits better than he expected. In King's Landing, the new order takes shape with surprising speed. Stannis proves as efficient in governance as he was in warfare, appointing capable men to crucial positions and rooting out the corruption that festered under previous regimes. The Crown's debts are addressed honestly, trade routes reopened, and justice dispensed without favour or prejudice. Lord Davos becomes Hand of the King, his common birth offset by uncommon wisdom and loyalty. Sir Jaime receives a royal pardon for his crimes, then promptly requests to join the Night's Watch. The Kingslayer seeks redemption in service to the realm, rather than titles or lands, and Stannis grants the request without hesitation. "The wall needs good swords," the king observes, "and you need a chance to rebuild your honor." As spring arrives in the capital, the changes become undeniable. The streets feel safer, the markets bustle with renewed trade, and the people speak of their king with respect rather than fear. It is not the golden age that songs celebrate, but something perhaps more valuable: competent, honest governance that serves the realm's needs. In the throne room where so much blood has been spilled, Stannis holds court with steady purpose. Petitioners receive fair hearings, disputes find resolution, and the law applies equally to lord and commoner alike. The Iron Throne no longer serves as a symbol of arbitrary power, but of justice tempered with mercy. The war that began with Robert's death and nearly consumed the Seven Kingdoms has ended not in total victory or devastating defeat, but in a pragmatic peace that acknowledges reality over ambition. The North rules itself, while the South rebuilds under legitimate authority. It is not the outcome anyone predicted, but perhaps it is the one the realm needed most. On quiet evenings, when the business of kingship permits, Stannis sometimes thinks of Tywin Lannister's final choice. The man who sacrificed everything for legitimacy would approve of what follows. A kingdom governed by law, not whim, and a peace built on justice rather than fear. It is a fitting memorial to the Lion of Casterly Rock, and a foundation upon which future generations might build something even better. The reign of King Stannis begins not with celebration, but with work. There are roads to repair, laws to codify, and a realm to heal. But for the first time in years, the work proceeds without the shadow of war darkening every decision. The new order has taken root, and with it, the hope that Westeros might finally know lasting peace. Chapter 9. The Price of Victory. The road to Casterly Rock winds through countryside that bears the scars of a war that ended too suddenly for anyone to truly comprehend its consequences. Tyrion Lannister rides in a simple cart, no longer a prisoner, but not yet free from the chains of his family's spectacular downfall. News of his father's death reached him 3 days ago, delivered by a nervous maester who could barely meet his eyes. Everything has changed. The golden lion that once struck fear into the hearts of enemies across 2 continents now lies broken, its roar silenced forever. Tyrion adjusts his position on the hard wooden seat and wonders what remains of the legacy Tywin spent a lifetime building. The first sign of Casterly Rock's fall comes from the banners flying over the approach roads. Not the crimson and gold of House Lannister, but the crowned stag of King Stannis. Royal forces have occupied the Westerlands, and the sight sends a chill through Tyrion that has nothing to do with the mountain air. "My lord," the cart driver glances back nervously. "Perhaps we should turn around. Find somewhere else to—" "Drive on," Tyrion interrupts. "I need to see this with my own eyes." Casterly Rock itself appears unchanged from a distance, its massive bulk carved into the living stone of the western mountains. But as they draw closer, the differences become impossible to ignore. Royal banners hang from the battlements where Lannister standards once flew. Soldiers in Baratheon colours man the gates that protected the seat of Lannister power for centuries. The greatest shock comes when they reach the main entrance. Sir Kevan Lannister waits in the courtyard, his face aged a decade in the weeks since Tywin's death. The man who inherited lordship of a broken house looks like he has been carrying the weight of mountains on his shoulders. "Nephew," Kevan's voice carries exhaustion that goes deeper than physical fatigue. "I wasn't certain you'd come." Tyrion climbs down from the cart with careful dignity, his mismatched eyes taking in the scene around him. Royal soldiers patrol the courtyard where he once played as a child. The great gates stand open under foreign occupation. This is not a homecoming, but a funeral. "Uncle," he replies, "I had to see what remained of us." "Very little, I'm afraid." Kevan gestures toward the castle's interior. "The crown has seized our gold mines, our treasury, most of our lands. We exist by King Stannis' sufferance, and that sufferance grows thinner each day." They walk through halls that once echoed with the laughter of children and the scheming of lords. Now they feel hollow, emptied of purpose and power. Portraits of Lannister ancestors stare down from the walls like judges condemning the living for their failures. "How bad is it?" Tyrion asks when they reach what was once his father's solar. Kevan pours wine from a flagon that bears royal seals rather than family crests. "Our debts exceed our remaining assets by a factor of 3. The Crown has called in every loan, seized every investment. Half our bannermen have declared for other houses to save themselves. The numbers paint a picture of systematic destruction. Tywin's carefully built financial empire has collapsed overnight, its foundations revealed as less solid than they appeared. Without the fear his name inspired, without the political connections his ruthlessness maintained, the Lannister fortune proves as fragile as morning mist. And our people? Tyrion asks. Fled, mostly. The servants who could find positions elsewhere have gone. The guards joined royal garrisons or sellsword companies. Even the maesters have requested transfers. Kevin's voice carries bitter acceptance. Who wants to serve a fallen house? Meanwhile, 200 miles east, the port city of Lannisport tells its own story of decline. Ships that once carried Lannister gold to markets across the known world now sail under different banners. The great trading houses that grew rich on Tywin's patronage have transferred their allegiances to rising powers. In the harbour master's office, ledgers tell the tale in stark numbers. Trade revenue down 60%, ship traffic halved. The economic engine that powered western Westeros sputters toward a halt without the Lannister name to guarantee payments and enforce contracts. It's not just our house, a Lannisport merchant explains to his worried peers. The entire Western economy was built on Lannister gold and Lannister connections. Without them, we're just another provincial port. The ripple effects spread far beyond the Westerlands. In King's Landing, Stannis meets with his economic advisors to address the vacuum left by Lannister financial collapse. The Crown's seizure of gold mines provides immediate revenue, but the disruption to trade networks threatens economic chaos. The Lannister banking system financed half the realm's commerce, Grand Maester Pylos reports, his voice heavy with concern. Without it, trade relationships that took decades to build simply vanish. Stannis listens with the grim attention he brings to all problems. The king understands warfare and justice, but economics proves a more subtle battlefield. What do you recommend? We need new financial institutions, Lord Treasurer Alistair Florent advises. The Crown could charter banks in Old Town and White Harbour to replace Lannister facilities, but it will take years to rebuild trust. Then we begin immediately, Stannis decides. The realm needs stability, not revenge. In the power vacuum left by Lannister decline, ambitious houses scramble to claim what they can. House Hightower expands its influence in the Reach, using Old Town's wealth to finance trade networks once dominated by Casterly Rock. The Iron Bank of Braavos opens new branches in major ports, eager to capture business from defunct Lannister institutions. Most surprisingly, House Stark emerges as an economic power. The North's newfound independence requires financial institutions to support trade with the South, and northern houses possess resources that southern lords previously ignored. White Harbour becomes a major port, rivaling King's Landing itself. We need our own banks, Robb tells his advisors in the Great Hall of Winterfell. Our own trade networks. If the North is to be truly independent, we cannot depend on southern gold. The transformation happens faster than anyone expected. Within months, new trade routes bypass traditional Lannister-controlled paths. Riverland lords who once paid tribute to Casterly Rock now trade directly with northern merchants. The economic map of Westeros redraws itself around the absence where Lannister power once stood. Back in Casterly Rock, Tyrion stands on the battlements where he spent countless hours as a child, dreaming of adventures beyond the western mountains. Now those adventures seem hollow compared to the price his family has paid for them. Do you regret it? Kevin asks, joining him in the cold mountain air. Your father's choice, I mean. Tyrion considers the question carefully. Below them, the gold mines that built Lannister power lie under royal control. Above them, foreign banners snap in the wind that once carried only Lannister colours. "No," he answers finally. "Father saw what Joffrey's rule would bring. Endless war. The realm bleeding itself to death over a bastard's crown. He chose to save Westeros, even if it cost us everything." "A noble sentiment," Kevin observes. "But nobility doesn't feed families or protect soldiers or maintain castles." "Perhaps," Tyrion agrees. "But it does give meaning to sacrifice. Father died for something larger than our house. That has to count for something." As night falls over the Westerlands, ravens carry reports of the day's business to courts across Westeros. New trade agreements signed, fresh banking partnerships established, economic relationships that will define the realm's future for generations to come. The age of Lannister dominance is over, ended not by military defeat, but by the moral choice of its greatest lord. What rises to replace it remains uncertain, but the foundation has been laid for a more balanced distribution of power and wealth. In Casterly Rock's great hall, Tyrion and Kevin dine on simple fare served on plain pottery. The golden cups and silver plates have been sold to pay debts or seized by the crown. Yet there is something oddly peaceful about the modest meal, free from the weight of maintaining an empire built on fear and gold. "What will you do now?" Kevin asks, as servants clear the table. "Serve," Tyrion replies without hesitation. "The realm needs capable administrators, and our family owes a debt that gold cannot repay. Perhaps King Stannis could use a hand who understands the costs of power." It is not the future either man imagined, but it offers something that Lannister gold never could. The possibility of redemption through service to something greater than personal ambition. The lion may be broken, but from its fall, a more just realm might rise. The price of victory has been paid in full, and now the work of building something better begins. Chapter 10. Fire and Blood. The Great Pyramid of Meereen rises like a dagger thrust into the burning sky of Slaver's Bay. From its highest chamber, Daenerys Targaryen watches her dragons soar over the ancient city, their wings casting shadows that remind all who see them that the blood of old Valyria has returned to the world. The Mother of Dragons has spent months consolidating her power in Essos, but her violet eyes turn always westward, toward the homeland stolen from her family. The news, when it finally arrives, comes by way of a Pentoshi merchant whose ship limped into Meereen's harbour after storms scattered his trading fleet. The man speaks in whispers, as if the very words might summon demons, of impossible events across the narrow sea. "Your Grace," he trembles before the Dragon Queen's throne. "The usurper's line is broken. King Robert is dead, and his sons, they say the Golden Prince who ruled after him died by his own blood's hand." Daenerys leans forward, her silver hair catching torchlight like spun moonbeams. "Speak plainly. What has happened in Westeros?" The merchant's tale unfolds like something from a fevered dream, the execution of Tywin Lannister by his own grandson. The boy King Joffrey dead by his uncle's sword. Stannis Baratheon claiming the Iron Throne while the North declares independence under a Stark king. The realm fractured and bleeding, its ancient order shattered beyond repair. "How many dragons does this Stannis command?" Daenerys asks with deadly quiet. "None, Your Grace," the merchant stammers. "No dragons in Westeros for near 300 years. Not since the Targaryens were murdered in their beds," she finishes, her voice carrying the promise of fire and vengeance. How interesting. That night, Daenerys summons her closest advisors to the pyramid's war room. Maps of Westeros cover every table, marked with coloured pins representing the new political reality her spies have gradually revealed. The kingdom she was born to rule lies divided and weakened, ripe for conquest by those with the will to claim it. The realm bleeds, Sir Jorah Mormont observes, his weathered face grave as he studies the intelligence reports. Stannis may wear the crown, but his rule is fresh and untested. The North has broken away entirely. It's chaos, Your Grace. Chaos is a ladder, Daenerys replies, echoing words spoken in the Red Keep's throne room years before. And dragons make excellent climbers. Tyrion Lannister, who arrived in Meereen weeks earlier, seeking redemption through service, examines the maps with the calculating mind that once served as Hand of the King. His mismatched eyes trace supply lines and political boundaries with the expertise of a man who understands the true price of conquest. Your Grace, he says carefully, the realm may be wounded, but wounded animals are often the most dangerous. Stannis is no fool, and this Stark king has proven his military competence. An invasion now might unite them against a common threat. Daenerys turns to face the dwarf who was once her enemy's brother. And what would you counsel, Tyrion Lannister? That I wait while pretenders consolidate their stolen power? I would counsel patience, Tyrion replies without flinching. Let them fight each other. When they are truly exhausted, then strike with overwhelming force. But Daenerys shakes her head, silver hair flowing like liquid metal. I have been patient for 16 years. My family's kingdom calls to me across the water, and I will not wait for permission to claim what is mine by right. 300 leagues to the north, the wall stands as it has for 8,000 years. A barrier of ice and ancient magic that protects the realms of men from the darkness beyond. Atop its heights, Jon Snow stares into the haunted forest and wonders what his father would think of the chaos consuming the Seven Kingdoms. News travels slowly to Castle Black, but even here, the reverberations of recent events cannot be ignored. Ned Stark lives, fled from King's Landing to parts unknown. Robb has crowned himself king in the north. The realm fractures while ancient enemies gather strength in the shadows, brooding again. Samwell Tarly climbs the steps to join Jon on the wall's summit, his breath forming clouds in the bitter cold. You've been doing a lot of that lately. Jon manages a weak smile for his friend. Hard not to brood when the world's falling apart. My brother's a king, my father's in hiding, and I'm stuck here, taking the black while everything I've ever known burns. The Watch stands apart from the quarrels of kings, Sam reminds him, though his voice lacks conviction. We serve the realm, not any one ruler. Do we? Jon asks, when the realm has 2 kings, 3, if you count whoever sits the Iron Throne now. What Jon doesn't say, cannot may, is that lately he's been having dreams, vivid nightmares of fire and blood, of a tower where a woman dies, birthing a child while kingdoms burn in the distance. In these dreams, he hears voices calling him by names that aren't his own, speaking of promises and secrets that died with his father's generation. The dreams began after the news of the realm's chaos reached the wall, as if the upheaval in Westeros has awakened something that long lay sleeping, some truth that demands acknowledgement, even as Jon's conscious mind rejects its implications. Promise me, Ned, he whispers to the wind, words that come from nowhere and mean everything. Meanwhile, in the Red Keep's chambers, King Stannis receives reports from his spies across the narrow sea with growing concern. The dragons are real. Daenerys Targaryen commands 3 full-grown beasts and an army of Unsullied that grows stronger each day. Worse still, she has begun assembling a fleet for what can only be an invasion of Westeros. How long? He asks Lord Davos, his voice sharp as Valyrian steel. 6 months, perhaps less, the Onion Knight replies. The dragons grow larger each day, and her forces multiply. Every freed slave who can hold a spear joins her cause. Stannis walks to the throne room's great window, gazing out over Blackwater Bay, where his own fleet lies at anchor. 50 ships seem pitifully few against the armada that Targaryen gold can purchase, and no amount of tactical brilliance can overcome the terror that dragons bring to battle. "Send ravens to Winterfell," he commands. "King Robb needs to know what's coming. Whatever our differences, we cannot face dragons divided." In Winterfell's great hall, Robb Stark reads Stannis' warning with the grim understanding of a man who has seen too much war for his 19 years. The message speaks of fire and blood, of a dragon queen who means to reclaim her family's throne, regardless of who currently sits it. "She'll come for all of us," Robb tells his assembled bannermen. "Dragons don't distinguish between independent kingdoms and royal domains. We burn the same." Lord Umber pounds his fist on the great table. "Let her come! The North remembers how to fight!" But Robb shakes his head. "This isn't about courage, my lord. It's about survival. Dragons ended the last great rebellion against Targaryen rule. They can end ours just as easily." The raven he sends south carries words that would have been unthinkable months ago. An offer of alliance between the Northern Kingdom and the Iron Throne. Not submission, but partnership against a threat that dwarfs their political differences. Across the narrow sea, Daenerys stands on Meereen's great pyramid as her dragons circle overhead. Drogon, largest and fiercest, lands beside her with a sound like controlled thunder. The great black beast regards his mother with eyes that burn like molten gold, and in that gaze she sees the future written in fire. "The time has come," she tells her advisers, her voice carrying the certainty of destiny fulfilled. "Ready the ships. Gather the armies. The Dragon Queen goes home." The invasion fleet that assembles in Slaver's Bay over the following weeks defies easy description. Merchant vessels purchased with Targaryen gold, war galleys crewed by former slaves who fight for freedom, transport ships carrying the unsullied whose spears have never known defeat. Above them all soar the dragons, their presence a promise and a threat that echoes across the waters. In Westeros, the response is immediate and desperate. Stannis and Robb meet at the Twins, where their fathers once stood together against the Mad King. The irony is not lost on either man, as they plan defenses against the Mad King's daughter. "We need wildfire," Stannis states bluntly. "Every alchemist, every cache, every pot that can be produced. Dragons are powerful, but they're not invincible." "And if she lands in the north?" Robb asks. "The castles are strong, but dragon fire melts stone as easily as ice." "Then we make her pay for every mile," Stannis replies. "Harass her forces, strike at her supply lines, make her conquest as costly as possible. Eventually, even dragons tire." But both men know the truth they cannot speak aloud. The age of dragons has returned to Westeros, and no amount of human courage or tactical brilliance can stand against fire made flesh. The realm that emerged from civil war now faces a threat that could unite them in common cause or consume them all in dragonfire. On the wall, Jon Snow stands watch as always, but his dreams grow stronger each night. Visions of silver-haired queens and burning cities, of secrets that shaped kingdoms and promises that demanded blood. Something stirs in the world beyond human understanding, and the bastard of Winterfell finds himself at the center of forces he cannot comprehend. The Game of Thrones enters its final phase, where mortals and monsters clash for dominion over a realm that may not survive the coming storm. Fire and blood approach from across the sea, and Westeros prepares to face its greatest test since the conquest itself. Chapter 11. The Last War. The dragon fleet appears on the horizon, like a thundercloud given form, its black sails blotting out the morning sun as it approaches the shores of Dragonstone. From the island's ancient battlements, Stannis Baratheon watches through a spyglass as his ancestral seat becomes the staging ground for invasion. 300 ships bear the three-headed dragon of House Targaryen, and above them circle the beasts that gave the sigil meaning. "How many?" Lord Davos asks, though his weathered face suggests he already knows the answer will be grim. "More than we can count," Stannis replies, lowering the glass. "And that's just what we can see." The dragons soar above the fleet, like gods of war made manifest. Drogon, black as midnight and large as a castle's tower. Rhaegal, green and bronze, his wings casting emerald shadows on the water. Viserion, cream and gold, beautiful and terrible in equal measure. Their roars echo across Blackwater Bay, and even seasoned soldiers feel their courage falter at the sound. Daenerys Targaryen stands on her flagship's deck, silver hair whipping in the salt wind as she surveys the homeland stolen from her family. The Red Keep rises in the distance, its towers crowned with Baratheon banners that will soon burn. Justice has come to Westeros at last, carried on wings of fire and vengeance. "Your Grace." Tyrion approaches carefully, his mismatched eyes reflecting both awe and terror at the sight of the capital. The city. There are 500,000 innocent souls within those walls. "And how many innocents died because of usurpers sitting my family's throne?" Daenerys replies, without looking away from her target. "How many children starved while pretenders spent gold that should have fed them?" The first landing comes not at King's Landing, but at the mouth of the Blackwater Rush, where Robb Stark's northern army has taken position alongside Stannis' forces. The alliance forged in desperation holds firm as 20,000 men prepare to face an enemy beyond their comprehension. "Remember your orders," Robb calls to his assembled commanders. "The dragons are the key. Bring them down, and the rest becomes a battle we can win." Catapults loaded with specially designed iron bolts stand ready along the shoreline. Scorpion ballistae, the largest ever built, wait beneath camouflaged positions. Every archer carries arrows tipped with dragon glass, though few believe such weapons will pierce scales that turned aside ballista bolts in ages past. The first wave of longships grounds on the muddy banks with military precision. Dothraki warriors pour onto Westerosi soil, their curved arcs gleaming in the sunlight as they form into their traditional wedge formations. Behind them march the Unsullied, their bronze-headed spears and locked shields creating an wall of discipline that has broken armies across 2 continents. "Now!" Stannis roars, and 100 siege engines loose their fury simultaneously. Iron bolts the size of tree trunks streak through the air toward the circling dragons. Most go wide, but one catches Viserion's wing membrane, tearing through the delicate skin with a spray of golden blood. The cream and gold dragon shrieks in pain and rage, wheeling away from the battlefield as his brothers roar in response. The sound that emerges from Drogon's throat is not the roar of an animal, but the war cry of an ancient god. The great black dragon dives toward the siege engines like a falling star, and when he opens his maw, the world burns. Dragonfire washes over the carefully prepared positions in a wave of liquid death. Steel melts like wax. Stone cracks and crumbles. Men scream for the few seconds they have left before the flames claim them. In moments, half the siege engines are reduced to smoking ruin. "Fall back to secondary positions," Robb shouts over the chaos, his voice barely carrying over the sound of destruction. "Reform the lines." But even as his men retreat in good order, the Dothraki charge strikes the Westerosi left flank like a hammer blow. These are not the disciplined knights of Westeros, but horsemen who learned warfare in the endless grasslands of Essos, and their fury is terrible to behold. Steel rings against steel as two civilizations clash in the mud of the Blackwater. Northern longaxes meet Dothraki arrax, while unsullied spears probe for weaknesses in shield walls that have held for 1,000 years. Above it all, Drogon and Rhaegal circle like vultures, their shadows falling across friend and foe alike. In the chaos of battle, few notice the lone rider who gallops from the direction of the wall, his black destrier foaming at the mouth from the desperate pace. Jon Snow has ridden for 5 days and nights, driven by dreams that grow stronger with each mile toward the capital. The truth burns in his mind like fever, demanding acknowledgement, even as his rational thoughts reject its implications. He reaches the battlefield as Rhaegal swoops low over the northern lines, bronze and green death-given wing. Dragonfire erupts from the beast's throat, but Jon does not flinch or flee. Instead, he draws his sword and rides directly toward the approaching flame. "Dracarys!" Daenerys shouts from her position near the shoreline, her voice carrying the authority of dragon lords. "Burn them all!" But something impossible happens. The dragonfire parts around Jon like water around a stone, the flames refusing to touch him, even as they consume everything in their path. Rhaegal pulls up short, confusion evident in his ancient yellow eyes as he stares at the man who stands untouched in the midst of inferno. "What in 7 hells?" Robb breathes, watching his bastard brother walk through fire as if it were morning mist. Jon himself seems as stunned as anyone, staring at his unburned hands with wonder and terror. But the truth, when it finally comes, arrives not as revelation, but as memory. Fragments of conversations overheard in childhood, meaningful glances between his father and uncle, dreams that were more than dreams. "My name," he whispers to the wind, words that carry across the battlefield with impossible clarity, "is Aegon Targaryen, 6th of his name, son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark." The admission hits both armies like a physical blow. Even the dragons seem to pause in their assault, great heads turning toward the young man who stands, revealed at last. Daenerys stares across the battlefield with violet eyes wide with shock and something that might be hope. "Nephew," she calls, her voice carrying clearly across the chaos. "Come home." But Jon's response surprises everyone, including himself. "I am home, Your Grace. This is my home, and I will not see it burn." He draws Longclaw, the Valyrian steel blade singing as it leaves its sheath. The sword that belonged to House Mormont now gleams with purpose as its wielder finally understands his destiny, not as bastard or king or dragon, but as the bridge between ice and fire that the realm desperately needs. "Stand down your forces," Jon calls to his aunt, his voice carrying the authority of ancient bloodlines. "There has been enough killing in the name of crowns." Daenerys' face hardens with the fury of a dragon denied. "You would side with usurpers against your own blood?" "I side with the people of Westeros," Jon replies without hesitation. "All of them. Highborn and low, northern and southern, those who kneel and those who stand free. That is what kings are meant to serve." The confrontation that follows will be remembered in song and story for 1,000 years. Dragon against dragon rider, aunt against nephew, the old order against the new. Drogon lands between the armies with earth-shaking force, his massive head lowering to study the young man who claims Targaryen blood. For a heartbeat, the entire battlefield holds its breath. Then Drogon's great head dips in what can only be described as a bow, acknowledging the kinship that flows in Jon's veins. The great black dragon will not attack one of his own bloodline, and his submission speaks louder than any words. "The dragons have chosen," Jon announces, his voice carrying across both armies. "Let there be peace." What follows is not the glorious conquest Daenerys envisioned, but something more complex and ultimately more meaningful. Negotiations conducted under banners of parley, with Jon serving as mediator between his aunt's imperial ambitions and the established order she seeks to overthrow. The final terms, hammered out over hours of desperate diplomacy, reflect the wisdom that comes from exhaustion and the recognition that endless war serves no one's interests. Daenerys will be recognized as Queen of the Iron Throne, but with conditions that limit her power and protect the realm's existing structures. Stannis retains his crown as King of the Stormlands, ruling independently but allied to the Iron Throne. Robb keeps the North sovereign and free. The other kingdoms maintain their traditional laws and customs, while acknowledging Targaryen supremacy in name, if not always in practice. "It's not what any of us wanted," Tyrion observes, as the documents are signed beneath the afternoon sun. "But perhaps it's what the realm needed." Jon stands apart from the ceremony, watching his dragon aunt take her seat on a throne that has cost so much blood to claim. The revelation of his true parentage has changed everything and nothing, leaving him caught between worlds he never asked to inherit. "What will you do now?" Robb asks, approaching his brother with something approaching awe. "You have the strongest claim to that throne, if you wanted it." Jon shakes his head, a sad smile playing across his features. "The realm has enough kings. I'll return to the wall where I belong. The Night's Watch needs men who understand that some duties matter more than crowns. The last war ends not with conquest or defeat, but with the recognition that power shared is power strengthened. The dragons have returned to Westeros, but they serve a realm that has learned to balance authority with justice, tradition with progress, the rights of kings with the needs of common folk." As the sun sets over Blackwater Bay, 3 monarchs rule where once there was one, and the realm finds peace not through submission, but through the wisdom of compromise. The Game of Thrones continues, but its rules have changed forever, tempered by fire and ice in equal measure. Chapter 12. The Dawn of Peace. 5 years have passed since the last war ended, and King's Landing has never looked more beautiful. The city that once reeked of sewage and corruption now bustles with honest trade and careful governance. The Red Keep's towers gleam in the morning sun, their banners bearing the 3-headed dragon of House Targaryen. But the realm they overlook has changed in ways that go deeper than symbols. Queen Daenerys Targaryen sits in the small council chamber, not the throne room, conducting the business of governance with a humility that would have surprised her younger self. The dragons that once struck terror into the hearts of her enemies now serve more peaceful purposes. Drogon helps clear landslides from mountain passes. Rhaegal's fire forges the steel that builds new roads and bridges. Even Viserion, still bearing scars from the last war, has learned that construction serves the realm better than destruction. "The harvest reports from the Reach are excellent, Your Grace," Tyrion Lannister announces from his seat as Master of Coin. The dwarf has found unexpected fulfillment in honest service, using his keen mind to rebuild the realm's finances on foundations more solid than Lannister gold ever provided. "And the North?" Daenerys asks, genuine concern in her violet eyes. "King Robb reports record wheat yields," Tyrion replies with a slight smile. "Independence suits them well. Trade between the kingdoms has actually increased since the separation." Through the chamber's great windows, the Queen can see ships from across the known world docked in Blackwater Bay. Northern timber, Dornish spices, Braavosi gold, and even goods from distant Yitai flow through the capital in greater quantities than ever before. The realm's division into multiple kingdoms has created competition that benefits everyone. The knock at the chamber door brings news from the newest member of the small council, Sir Samwell Tarley, Grand Maester and architect of the realm's educational reforms, enters with the latest reports from the growing network of schools and libraries that now spread across Westeros. Your Grace. Sam's voice still carries traces of nervousness, but his eyes shine with the confidence that comes from meaningful work. The literacy project shows remarkable progress. We've established schools in every major town, and reading rates have doubled in just 5 years. Daenerys nods with satisfaction. This was never part of her original vision for conquest, but it has become the achievement she values most. A realm where knowledge flows as freely as trade, where common children can read the same books as lords' sons, where wisdom matters more than birth. 300 miles north, in the Great Hall of Winterfell, Robb Stark holds court as king in the north. The crown of bronze and iron sits easily on his head now, no longer the burden it once felt. At his side sits Queen Jane, the former Jane Westerling, her belly round with their second child. The royal couple represents something new in Westeros, a partnership built on love rather than political necessity. The Southern Lords request permission to establish a trading post at White Harbour, his Maester announces. They offer favourable terms for northern goods. Granted, Robb decides without hesitation. The North grows stronger through friendship, not isolation. The decision reflects the fundamental change in how the kingdoms relate to each other. Where once there was suspicion and dominance, now there is cooperation and mutual benefit. The North's independence has not led to isolation, but to equality of partnership with its southern neighbours. In the Stormlands, King Stannis rules from Storm's End with the same rigid justice that once made him unpopular, but now provides exactly the stability his people need. His kingdom may be the smallest of the three, but it has become a model of efficient governance that other realms seek to emulate. Justice delayed is justice denied, he tells his own small council, reviewing cases that would once have languished for years in corrupt courts. Every citizen deserves a fair hearing, regardless of their station. The phrase has become his motto, carved into the walls of every courthouse in the Stormlands. Under his rule, the law applies equally to all, and his subjects sleep soundly, knowing that their king values truth over convenience. Far to the north, beyond the wall's ancient ice, Jon Snow stands watch as he has for 5 years. Lord Commander of the Night's Watch at barely 25, he has transformed the ancient order into something it was always meant to be, protectors of all humanity, not just the 7 kingdoms. "Any word from the realms?" Samwell asks during his rare visits to Castle Black. The Grand Maester makes the journey north twice a year, maintaining the bonds of friendship that no amount of duty can break. "Ravens arrive weekly," Jon replies, gazing out at the haunted forest that no longer seems quite so threatening. "The realm prospers. Sometimes I think that's worth more than any crown. The wall itself has changed, becoming less a barrier than a bridge. Northern merchants trade with willing wildlings who bring furs and amber from the lands beyond. The Night's Watch has grown from a few hundred condemned men to nearly 3,000 volunteers who serve because they believe in protecting something larger than themselves. In King's Landing's Godswood, beneath the ancient weirwood tree, a different kind of ceremony takes place. Former Queen Cersei Lannister, granted clemency after years of humble service to the Silent Sisters, kneels in prayer beside the reflecting pool. Her golden hair has gone grey, her face bears the lines of hard-won wisdom, and her green eyes hold peace instead of fury. "I pray for forgiveness," she whispers to the carved face that stares down from the white trunk. "Not for my crimes, but for the pain those crimes brought to others." It is a transformation that few could have predicted, but perhaps the most remarkable of all. The woman who once plotted kingdom's destruction now tends to orphaned children in the capital's poorest districts, finding redemption through service she once would have scorned. The changes run deeper than politics or personalities. In the great library of Old Town, newly expanded with royal funding, Meister's copybooks, not just in the common tongue, but in the languages of former slaves and foreign peoples. Knowledge spreads like seeds on fertile ground, taking root in places where ignorance once flourished. In Dawn, Prince Doran rules as he always has, but now his isolation feels like wisdom rather than weakness. The realm that once seemed divided by geography and culture has found strength in diversity, each region contributing its unique gifts to the common good. The dragons themselves have become symbols of this new age. Children who once hid when their shadows passed overhead now run outside to watch them fly. Drogon's roar no longer means death and destruction, but the herald of progress. A new bridge being forged, a mountain pass being cleared, a harbour being deepened for larger ships. "The realm we built," Tyrion observes during one of his regular dinners with Queen Daenerys, "was not the one any of us planned." "Perhaps that's why it works," she replies, watching through the window as merchants from a dozen kingdoms conduct honest business in the streets below. "We were all trying to impose our will on the world. The world had its own ideas." On quiet evenings, when the business of governance permits, the Queen sometimes takes Drogon flying over the realm she rules. From Dragonback, the kingdoms spread below her like a tapestry woven from many threads. The north's dark forests give way to the Riverland's fertile plains, which blend into the Reach's golden fields and the Stormland's rocky coasts. But it is not the geography that moves her most. It is the lights that twinkle in every village, the smoke that rises from countless hearths, the roads that connect communities once isolated by fear or ignorance. This is the true conquest, not of territory, but of despair, not of enemies, but of the darkness that once threatened to consume everything decent in the world. The legacy of Tywin Lannister's final choice echoes through every reformed institution and peaceful negotiation. His sacrifice of family loyalty for the greater good has become the foundation upon which the new order rests. Justice tempered by mercy, law enforced without favor, power shared rather than hoarded. In the Red Keep's great library, a new book takes its place among the histories. The Price of Honor, a chronicle of Tywin Lannister's final choice. Written by a dozen scholars from all the kingdoms, it tells the story of how one man's willingness to choose duty over blood changed the course of history. The final passage reads, "Lord Tywin died as he lived, calculating the cost of every action, weighing loyalty against justice, choosing the harder path because it led to the greater good. In his sacrifice, he found the redemption that eluded him in life, and in his legacy, the realm found the foundation for lasting peace." As the sun sets over Westeros, 3 dragons circle the capital in a display that has become as regular as the changing of the guard. Their shadows fall across a city where former enemies work together, where children learn to read regardless of their birth, where justice flows as freely as the black water that carries ships from every corner of the known world. The Game of Thrones is over. In its place stands something more precious and far more difficult to achieve. a realm where power serves the people instead of consuming them, where the strong protect the weak rather than prey upon them, where the future promises hope instead of horror. The dawn of peace has broken over the 7 kingdoms, now 3 kingdoms united in common purpose, and in its light, even the darkest chapters of history can find redemption through the choices made by those brave enough to sacrifice everything for the greater good.